Hello, Cassie Brown here. I am thrilled to welcome you to the Brace for Impact podcast. I've been incredibly blessed to work with and coach some of the top entrepreneurs, CEOs, and marketers in the industry. And do you know the one thing that they all had in common? They didn't wait for the perfect time, but hit the ground running. They learned to see opportunity in motion and just leap. I created this podcast to help other entrepreneurs own their calling, expand their influence, get uncomfortable, embrace the growth of the journey to leave an impact on the world around them. For those who are ready to stop playing it small, to pick up the mantle of contribution that our clients in the world so desperately need. If that's you, then get ready to brace for impact as I share with you the top strategies, real truths, and hacks to crash through the obstacles and arrive in alignment of integrity, impact, and income. It's time to initiate the ripple effect of change. Hi, what is up, everyone? This is Cassie Brown. I am so excited to be back with you guys. We just got back from our family trip to Paris and Europe, and we also stopped in London, all 6 of us. I cannot tell you how many looks we got at the airport going through security and going back through customs. I feel like that in itself, if I was to base a successful family vacation on just surviving customs and the airport lines with 4 kids, one of them being a wild card 5-year-old, that was success. I am so excited to dive into this episode that we're going to be talking about today. The previous podcast you listened to was the 3 steps to becoming impactful, which was centered around the principles of decide, declare, do. And you may have noticed that episode was actually recorded over the summer. And that's really, really important. And I'm just so blown away at the way the timing of these episodes have fallen, because it was right around or after the recording of that episode that we actually booked our trips, our flights to Paris. We had, talked about it for a really, really long time. My husband and I were fortunate enough to go to Paris a few years ago on the front end of a business trip that he had to be in Germany for. So it was not something that we orchestrated or facilitated on our own. It was the first time I had ever been over to Europe. So 3 years ago, first trip to Paris. We got to go a couple of days in London real quick, went to Paris, went to Lyon, and then Germany. And it was amazing. It was so refreshing, and just to be like right there in the culture. And that is what really sparked a desire for us to open up that same opportunity for our kids. But of course, you start multiplying international travel, especially plane tickets alone, times 6, and it becomes this wild, crazy dream. But at that moment, I felt like 3 years ago with my husband, like that's one thing that we decided. We decided it was going to be important with our family, and we kind of crystallized that as one of our goals. And that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. I want to really get into what comes after decide, declare, do. And there is a lot that centers around visualization and evaluation, but there's also 3 more steps. It is action, clarity, and transformation. And that's what we're going to be diving into today into the podcast. I hope you're ready. I'm so excited for this episode. Let's get started. Okay, so in the introduction, I talked to you briefly about having the vision for our family, what we wanted to create for our kids. And a lot of that at the heart and the soul of my business has to be like it begins and the ends with the impact that I can first bring to my family. And in a future episode, I'll go into the 5 layers of why and how we can leverage and anchor those in different ways, like to move us forward. But for me, it starts with what kind of life can we provide for our children? What kind of priorities are we going to actually live for them every single day, so that when they grow up and they decide what they want to do with their futures, we've given them a different viewpoint. We've given them a different viewpoint from someone going in 9 to 5 or 40 hours a week or having to put in for vacation. And that is something we struggle with ourselves. Many of our friends can't go on family vacations because they only have so much time off. And I'm not going to lie, like it does spoil you after enough time. So I'm definitely very aware of it, but it's something that became really, really important for us to see, to be able to show our kids. But so that was part, the visualization of what kind of future we wanted to create for them, and what did that mean now, right? So you have to pair the two together. You have to know where you're wanting to go, and you have to really see it in your mind's eye, in your heart. Like, you've got to be able to close your eyes and be able to see that future actually happening before you, almost as if you're watching a movie. You're watching a scene of your own life movie, and it's so real, and that triggers things in your brain that helps you remove those subconscious tendencies that are going to stop you from moving forward and keeping you safe, because you're never going to get to the place that you visualize if you don't start taking that step today. And so that's what Decide, Declare, Do kind of took care of. That first step, like just making that decision is that first step. But you have to visualize it, you have to see it, and you have to know in your heart of hearts that you are going to get there. You may not know how, you may not know when, but you visualize it so dang strong that you see yourself. And so when you do that, what does it look like? And then you embed that, and that becomes what you're walking towards. So that's the first step, is visualization. And then action, right? We have to have action, and not just any type of action. It pretty much has to be imperfect action, because you can get to the point where, like I mentioned earlier, your subconscious is going to want to keep you safe. You're going to plan out, you're going to have all of this mapped out, like, this is what I want to do, but maybe I don't quite understand X, Y, and Z. Or after I take this first step, I realize, that next step isn't quite clear. So I need to figure out what step 3, 4, 5, and 6 is before I even take step 1. And that is going to stop you every time. Analysis paralysis, it's perfectionism. It's one of those things that it's just going to keep you spinning your wheels. And imperfect action is just like it sounds. It is the next step of Decide, Declare, Do. Do is an action. You have to take action. You have to get yourself in momentum, no matter how big or how small, to move forward towards that goal that you visualized. All right, so we've taken imperfect action. Did it work? Did it not work? This is where we're going to redefine failure. Another thing that keeps you stuck from taking action is the fear of failure, or the fear of rejection, or the fear of judgment. And typically those are all centered around of making a mistake, not getting it right the first time. And news flash, there is not one successful person on planet Earth who did not try, and by all other standards fail, before they tried again. The thing that differentiates them from everyone else is that they refused to give up. They kept trying, they kept going, they endured all of the failures, because in their eyes, they were not failing, they were perfecting. They were adapting, they were constantly learning. If you're always learning, you can never fail. And if we embrace that and remove the fear of failure, you're finally free. That's powerful. And only you can do that. No one can give that to you. You can't go to Target and buy it off the shelf. You have to do it for yourself. And within that space, the learning and the reevaluating, the adapting, the seeing what worked, what didn't work, comes clarity. And that's step number 2. After the action, the imperfect action, it's clarity. Clarity of purpose, clarity of what works, what doesn't work, what should we not waste our time with. And this works in personal and in business. More so of what I'm talking to you is a marketing strategy, a business foundation principle. But the same thing is true right? We're all going through life. We're a sum of our experiences, and we're trying new things, and we're figuring it out. The first time that my husband and I traveled to Paris, we went up the Eiffel Tower, and I have a fear of heights. And the tallest thing I've ever really been on out in the open was like, one of those high diving tiers when we were younger. And, I finally worked up enough courage and jumped off. So like I had conquered that, but that was like nothing compared to the Eiffel Tower. And it's not at all the way at the top. This is just, the first platform that you can get up and walk into the open air. And holy smokes, I would have never realized that my fear of heights went to that degree. But I was frozen. I didn't want to walk out. I got out of the elevator, and you exit the elevator, and it's sort of enclosed in like a store area, which was perfect because I didn't even know how high I was at that point in time. So I'm thinking, okay, I can do this. But as I stepped out into the open air, like I don't know if I've ever felt fear like that. My stomach, like this is like beyond roller coaster fear, beyond high places, beyond Tower of Terror type feel. Like this was, I think I'm certifiably crazy. Like I couldn't move. I couldn't rationalize to myself that I was safe. I could only look left and right. Like I could not look out at the city. And the only saving grace at that point in time is my background in photography, because I had waited all week for that view on that platform of the Eiffel Tower to look over and see the city. And dang it, I was getting some pictures. And that was my only saving grace, was just that pure determination to accomplish my goal. So I took out my camera and I focused on just the camera and went total in photographer mode to make sure that I positioned myself to get the shot that I wanted. I had to completely decompartmentalize everything else until I realized I had taken baby steps up to the rail. It was absolutely terrifying. But this last trip to Paris, I knew all of that going through. I had taken the action, I had gained clarity, I had learned how to navigate my fear. So I knew it was going to be hard. It was going to be scary. When I went up the elevator, I knew what I was getting myself into. And part 3 of what I want to talk to you about today is transformation. Once you've already done it, once you've already learned, once you've already looked at things from different angles, you transform. You can't go back to what you were before because you took the action step to get to the clarity. Now you're at the transformation. And this last trip to Paris, I was able to experience the Eiffel Tower through that transformation. I confidently walked out. I knew I had done it before. I knew what backup systems I needed to have in place in case I did hyperventilate again. Previously, we walked down the stairs, and I had already decided this time I'm going to walk down the stairs again. And I was determined for it not to be as fearful or scary. I had decided, declared, and was doing. I took action, and I evaluated, and I learned. I applied it through the clarity, and I transformed myself. So I wasn't dependent on fear. And the beautiful thing about this time, when we went up there, our 12-year-old son, Noah, had the same fear. And I was able to tell him, Mommy did it last year. I knew what he was feeling. I knew the paralyzing, body shaking, trembling fear that you just can't put words to. And I was able to explain it and talk him through it. And he was able to look at that city and have the same view that I was able to have. And it was amazing. And that is just being able to impact our kids. That's the vision that we had for impacting our kids. And I was so excited at that moment when I realized I had literally put this into practice, this whole principle, this whole series of action and clarity and transformation. I'd put it into practice, and it made me so confident. Not once this time in planning for the Eiffel Tower did I worry or hesitate about being up that high. And that is so important because not only was I able to help our 12-year-old son navigate that same fear, but it's a repeatable pattern in every single area of your life. What scares you? What are you hesitating? What's keeping you from moving forward? What is stopping you? And it doesn't matter if it's personal, if it's business, if it's something like the Eiffel Tower, an experience. When you teach yourself that you recognize the process that you can go through between replacing that fear with transformation, you are unstoppable because you've recognized a pattern, you've identified the pattern, and all it takes is going through the next step. I'm so excited to share that next step with you today, and that was to act. If you were paying attention and just taking notes, action that leads to clarity, that leads to transformation. It spells out act. Action is what is needed to get you where you're going. But you have to visualize to know where it is you want to go. And I hope I've inspired you to start visualizing today. Another thing that I really wanted to share with you guys is around that same time when we booked the flights to Paris and London, I had realized I had a habit of not thinking big enough. So I really wanted to start thinking bigger. And when we booked those tickets to Paris, again, for the second time this year, I told my husband, I'm like, when I go, I am going with the intention to create a small live event retreat that in the future I can host, small, between 5 and 8 people. And then we can just travel around and go and experience these beautiful places that we want to experience, but at the same time, grow in our relationships, lean in on each other, and just create a powerful network and mastermind, and actually not only move our business forward with the time that we're able to spend together, but explore these cities while we're doing it. So that's what I went with the intention for. And I'm not even, I think I'm about a week and a half away. Yeah, on the 20th of this month, I'm going to have my first live event. It's not in London or Paris, it's in LA, but that was my intention. I had a vision that I wanted to create it, and I took the imperfect action steps and the time and opportunity that I had available between a few days that I had open between traveling in California and going to LA, and I filled it with my first live event. Now it's going to be small, and that's just the way that I want it, because it's going to be small, it's going to be implementation focused, and really allowing me and the people and the guests and the attendees that I'm just, so blessed to be there with. We're all going to have that space to work on our businesses together. And I am so thankful. I cannot wait for this event, and I'll bring you guys along. Let me see. By the time this drops, the early bird will probably be expired. And I think we only have a couple spots left. But if you're hearing this, I think this will drop before, a week before the actual event. Reach out if it's something that you're interested in. Yeah, it's going to be incredible. I'm super excited about it. But just goes back to what are you visualizing? What is your Paris? I just keep going back to that. It makes me wonder, if we had not made that decision, that's the type of experience we wanted for our kids and our family. We had not experienced it 3 years ago, and also just put that a priority that we would be able to have taken the kids to experience this at this young of an age. And same thing with the live event, the Amplify Retreat. Would that have even happened had I not had that permission? I gave myself permission to dream a little bit bigger and visualize. So what's your Paris? I'd love to hear. Please reach out. Please connect with me on social media and let me know what your Paris is. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks so much for spending time with me today. I hope you've received value, encouragement, and exactly what you need to help keep you in momentum to grow and impact the world around you. Big or small, we all make a difference. Thanks also for subscribing, downloading, and leaving a review. This helps us reach others who need this message in their life. If you know anyone who would benefit from this podcast, please share so you and I can help more people boldly step into purpose. It is my heart's mission to help and encourage others. My internal belief that a rising tide lifts all ships. So much of what we talk about on the podcast is leading with value and building relationships through service. So we've created a collection of resources for you to continue growing, whether you are just getting started or ready to scale your business. Visit amplifymyimpact.com for show notes, downloads, programs, and more information about how to directly work with our team to amplify your impact and change the world.